Picked the wrong week to quit sniffing glue.
Well, hey guys, notice the change of scenery. It's Lou. It's Thursday afternoon, and I figured, what can I do for this week to finish out, since I finished the Aries yesterday and posted that video, and given that I'm busy putting an order out for Steve, and I just finished that. I didn't feel like really cracking into another model this week with only 2 days to go. So I figured, what project do I have that's kicking around that I need to take care of, and that I can do in a couple of days and be done with it and get it checked off, and then start next week on a Monday with a full week of working on a model. And with the Easter holiday coming up this weekend, I just didn't feel like jumping into another big project right away. So I looked around and I thought, here's something I need to take care of. The weather has turned nice. I can work outside like I need to. So I'll go ahead and knock this project out. What this project is I don't know if you have been around the channel for a while, but you will note that I like to collect big things. I like to collect big props, life-size props. And there's a bumblebee flying around me right now. But it's just so nice out today, flying insects notwithstanding. So I will usually keep an eye out on the RPF in the junkyard to see what full-scale props or full-scale replicas have come available that are A, within my budget, and B, feasible for me to go pick up. Because I the same thing I require of other people. If you want anything of mine, you got to come get it. I have the same requirement. I will stop it. I will drive. It has to be within a day's drive, which is like 5 hours out, 5 hours back. That's my maximum. But I'd rather go drive and pick something up rather than risk it getting smashed in the mail, or thrown off a UPS truck or anything like that. Because generally, life-size props are very heavy. Well, so I keep my eye on the RPF, and something came up that has been a grail item for me. Well, a variation of it has been a grail item for me. If you noticed, a lot of what's going on in the room is I'm a robot collector. I have a fondness in particular for full-size robots. I got a little toad on the back of the house right here that I'm keeping an eye on too. And one of a particular item I wanted to get. I've always wanted an R2. I've always wanted a life-size R2-D2. Now, not one of the fully blown drive it around with remote controls type of thing, because frankly I wouldn't get much use. Yes, those would be wonderful to have, but I will pay less for an R2 with less features, because 90% of the time it's going to sit in one place. So one of these things came available, and it was a scant 4-hour drive down to South Carolina to pick it up, and then 4 hours back. So I figured I'd make a bonsai run. Now I know, since I had this small car that I have, that it would have to be able to come apart. And I did some research, talked to the guy who had it. And yes, the R2 comes apart, but it also comes with this huge base. And there was always going to be a question of whether the huge base would fit in my car or not. And it turns out it didn't. So I was going down, and I took with me a small portable circular saw, knowing that it's a base. I mean, it's a nice base, but it's a base. It's not the thing. So if needs be, I would cut it up and put it back together once I got it here. So that's basically what we're going to be doing in the next day or so. Is I pulled the parts out. I'm going to make some blocks so that I can reinforce it and jam it back together, and then you'll see the final R2 displayed on it. But I have to tell you that when we arranged the meeting place, which was at a police station in a small town in South Carolina, police/fire station, so that we would both feel safe, you know, because I'm carrying, a not small amount of cash, and he's got this valuable R2, so it's like, you don't want to do this in the parking lot of a Denny's somewhere. You want to be someplace where it's in public. And to make a long story short, once we got all the parts out of his car, we realized that the R2 was missing a couple parts, and we'll talk about that, and also that the base would not fit in my small car, not in one piece. So it was with a heavy heart and a light saw that I cut the base in two. Now, we did run into a gentleman there who was a fire commander. He was a commander at the fire station. And naturally, anybody about our age, he's going to be a Star Wars fan. So he saw this R2 and he had to know what was going on. But I have to tell you, I think I made a grown man cry when I pulled out that saw and realized he realized I was going to have to cut the base. It's like, dude, I live 5 hours from here. I'm not going to go rent a truck. I'm not going to leave this and come back for it the next day. It's got to go home. It's either going to go home with me in pieces or it ain't going home with me. Those are the two choices. And like I said, it's a base. Yes, it's part of the collector. It's part of the presentation. But I'm one of those guys that takes the toys out of the case. So, takes the toys out of the package. I don't believe in leaving stuff in the box. So a case is I don't buy things with the intention or the plan to resell it. That's what I'm trying to get at. So if I want an action figure, I'm going to take it out of the case. If I buy this replica and then the base doesn't work, I'll fix the base. It's paint. I know how to fix paint. I think I about drove him to tears when I cut the base up. But we got everything in the car, drove it back with the body of R2 sitting next to me in the seat, the dome in the back on the base with the legs and all that. I never want to get pulled over by the police speeding home, but it would have almost been worth it this time, just so that, when a cop pokes his head in the room, I can say, I've got to get this R2 back to the resistance on Alderaan, or back to the resistance, or else other systems will suffer Alderaan's fate. But that never happened. So I've got the R2 back here. I've had it basically sitting in the living room for the last couple of months, and I need to get it into the display room. But to do that, I've got to get the base fixed. So that's the long-winded story. That's what I'm going to be doing in the next couple of days. So let's get on with it. I got the saw set up out here. I need to cut some wooden blocks. So let me go grab the base and we'll get to it. Okay, here are the two pieces of the base. And as you can see, that's where I had to cut it. I just took a saw right down through that nice line that gets basically camouflaged by the time you get everything put back together. It's see, I can make it almost disappear. But before I put any weight back on top of that, I need to block it up in such a way that the weight of R2 doesn't crush that. So that's what the unglorious part of it is. Let's get to it before the skies open up. It looks like it might rain. Alrighty, we're on location here in the kitchen because I need to glue this and screw this back together. I've got the two halves. This is it's on its top right now. This is the seam. I'm going to chunk a bunch of glue in here right along that spline, and then we could slide everything back into place and screw it down, let it dry for a little bit, flip it over, and then reinforce the top. Once that sets up all night, I'll be able to move it back into the display room. Good morning, everybody. It's Friday, and work is progressing. As you can see, I've got the base put back together, and just only a couple, 3 Phillips head screws are noticeable, and that is no big deal at all. But I've got the base. Sorry, big guy. I got the base put back together, cleaned up. So now I just need to go get my my droid and set it on top of it, and then we can start reconstruction of the rest of the room for those people who have expressed a desire to see the rest of the room. this is the current state of things. And there's my big guy. But yeah, I need to go disassemble R2 in the other room and bring him. Actually, I think I'm going to need to take him apart to bring him in, because he's just too big for one person to carry by himself. And to show you what a mess the living room is in right now, this is my R2 unit. Now, I have taken the cover that hides this bolt off. That's held in with magnets. I need to remove that so that I can take the legs off of him and move him in pieces. This little bit with a magnet on it is a restraining bolt that I 3D printed myself. Found the file online, painted it up, and luckily the magnet that holds the remote on the other side of this door will also hold the restraining bolt in place. I'll give you the full how it works when I've got them reset up, but the head moves, but only manually. Alright, R2 is on his pedestal and he's just getting used to the new neighbors. He hasn't been able to shut up all day, but he's happy to move in. And for those of you in the know, this is the Sideshow collectible version of R2. It comes with this handy remote that I can shut him up on a moment's notice. I can also turn off his lights from the remote. And there is a switch on the top of his little beanie head to turn everything off. The door that I mentioned earlier right here is where the remote stays, and I'll pull the restraining bolt off. It's just a push magnet-y type of thing, and the remote actually magnetizes to the inside door. Not a lot of detail in there, not really happy with that. I mean, it's a nice effort, but I really would have liked to have seen the claw in there, and at some point this is wide open for scratch building more parts, but you push that back there and then the magnet holds it in place. But since there's a nice magnet there anyway, I figured, what the heck, let's put a restraining bolt there. So this is mostly fiberglass. There are quite a few turned aluminum pieces, details on it. This is aluminum, these bits are aluminum here, but the body is mostly fiberglass. The dome is not metal, it's a fiberglass, but it's got a very convincing paint job on it. These, of course, are metal. The holographic projector is metal. A lot of the details on the legs are metal or aluminum. But it's a very nice display piece for what it needs to do. And of course, if you want to move the head, if you want the head to move, you've got to do that manually. It does not have a head rotator on it, nor does it have wheels on it to roll it around. But for what I want to do with this is just fine. Like I said, I was lucky enough to pick this up from a gentleman who was upgrading his R2. He was plunking down the big dollars for the fully remote, fully robotic version, and wanted to free up some funds by selling his display piece, which for my purposes is just fine. All I need is a 3PO to go behind him. That is the last, I think, honestly, it is the last Grail item that I have on my bucket list of Grail items. It would be a full-size 3PO, maybe a full-size one of the silent running drones, and I think that's it. I had given some thought to a full-size Bob or a Vincent from Black Hole, but not Bob, Vincent or Maximilian, but those would be way too big. I've seen a full-sized Vincent at one of the conventions, and those things are deceptively huge. But here is the Kirk in the Kirk chair. Thank you, Steve Neal. That's a Steve Neal original Kirk chair. But we're going back around this way. Things on the wall up above the door don't get a lot of play. That's my head collection. The Baylock and the Salt Vampire there are Steve Neal originals. I've got a Cornelius to go right next to it that I'm still working on the base for. And one of my more prized possession is the stuffed Mugatu head from Star Trek Continues. But that's a quick pass. If you are of a mind to, I suppose you could still frame the video and pick out your favorite bit of memorabilia. But this is what happens. This is where the models go when they're built. They all come in here somewhere. That brings me around to this project. Now this has been kicking around on my workbench, at least a month or two, at least a couple of months. This has been kicking around, and I moved it back and forth and moved it back and forth, and I think the time has come to finally finish it. I want to get some of these half-done projects done so that I can start new projects with a clear conscience. This, for anybody who was unfortunate enough to not have been raised in the 60s, is Frankenstein Jr., Hanna-Barbera, Frankenstein Jr. character, voiced by the late great Ted Cassidy. One of the spate of mighty superheroes that Hanna-Barbera came out with about the time of The Impossibles and just a ton of other Jetsons, Top Cat, a ton of stuff. All came out in the golden days of Hanna-Barbera animation. But I've had this. I've had a love of Frankenstein Jr. ever since I was a kid, and when I saw this 3D model available on where was it? It was CG Trader, I believe, that had this. I had to get it. A friend of mine had hooked me up with some groovy ghoulies that I'm also printing and will paint up, and so I found this and it's I've got to do this. And believe it or not, this is the size it came in. Sometimes I will take these cartoon characters and I will blow them up to make them even larger. No, this is the size it came in. This was one part. From the feet up to the pelvis was one part. The body was another part. The arms were separate parts. The cape is what I'm working on now, because the cape, although it is fine, it's a little clumsy, and I really want to cut some of this bulk off of here so that it will display better and be a little bit more better balanced. Right now that cape pulls everything. It's so heavy that it pulls everything backwards. So I'm going to cut some of that, a lot of that weight off of there, and that's why it's handy to print two. Now, you know my first rule of 3D printing: never print just one. You always print two of everything. So I've got the head and the hands ready for detail painting. I've got little Buzz Conroy ready for detail painting. But before I finish up the painting on this, which still is some, I need to paint his logo, obviously. And I've got to fix this green. It's like two different shades of green I need to unify. I want to go ahead and do some carving on this cape, the bonus cape. I've kept the original just in case this turns out to be a wildly bad idea. But I've got this cape that I'm going to cut up and try to fill in with some putty and sand and see. Because the thing is, this cape has a dimension that it really doesn't need. The cape itself was a very dainty, thin little nothing of a cape that was there, I think, just to give some color. But it was undersized. When it was at rest, it came down to about there. It wasn't a long cape at all, so it didn't billow. So I'm going to cut this off, and we're going to go from there. Alrighty, the cape has been daintified. I needed to get some epoxy sculpt out here and fix this awkward little bend here. But that, to me, is a much better. You can see how much I cut off of there, and plus cutting off all of that bottom. You can see now how much of the bottom I cut off, and I just made this look like it's folding under itself. So I just need to pack this with epoxy sculpt. That joint basically is going to be hidden underneath there by the time we're all done. So I just need to clean this up a bit and pack some stuff in there, and then this will be ready for paint. Okay, continuing painting on Frankenstein Jr. and I get to the point where I'm getting to colors that you really couldn't do in animation. Now, yes, you could paint these colors on the animated cells, but they wouldn't show up correctly on your television, and that is gold and silver. They would have used a brown and a gray, and I am taking the opportunity to actually go back in and paint the metallics. Now, for an example, on his noggin here, these were tough to begin with because they were basically outlines. They were just black lines that kind of were suspended in air, like everything you saw on the Jetsons. So making that in 3 dimensions and painting it silver was the first trick. Now, the nose and the bolts in his jaw were probably supposed to be gold, but I am painting them brown to give them an undercoat, to give something for the gold pigment or the gold Tamiya paint to stick to. So while that's drying, I am, why do I have a spot on his cheek? Oh, good. We're going to let that dry, and then we'll be able to put the gold over top of that. Same with the bolts on his boots, his boot bolts. They most of the time show up as yellow, like the rest of his boots, but I believe they're supposed to be gold. So we'll go ahead and paint those brown and let that brown dry, and then come back in and put the gold over top of it. I've got the stitches painted in. Been doing a lot on Buzz here, getting all of his colors in right. I originally thought he was wearing darker blue jeans, but no, they are faded jeans, so I wanted to make sure they were a different color from Frankie's skin, so they're a little bit blue-green. Got the big symbol painted on Frank's chest. That probably took the longest amount of time because I had to paint that by hand. And the cape is out in the other room drying. I put a coat of purple on it. I probably need to bring that in here so I can paint this emblem that is right here. I need to paint that, undercoat that with brown so that I can paint that gold. Let me run and go get that. Okay, I wanted to show you today's fruits of the 3D printer, and those are 2 of the Groovy Ghoulies. That would be Drac and Wolfie. Frankenstein Jr. or Frankie. That's Frankenstein Jr. Frankie did it a while ago, as evidenced by the different color of resin, but of course these all came in parts. I've just got them fit together so you can see what they look like. And right now I've got Bella and the Mummy printing in their parts, so these should be coming up on the channel in the near future. But let's get Frankie finished. Now that the brown has had a chance to dry, I can put the gold over top of that, and the next thing you know, the compressor goes off. Next thing you know, we should be ready to glue some of this stuff together. Look at that face. Look at that mug. Nice. I'm debating. I've decided not to go in and treat it like animation, where, you know, you'd have all of the lines would be painted in black, like there would be a black line around his jaw, or the black line going down the seam here. The stitches are a different animal, but there's like on the wrist, where the wrist meets the arm, there's a seam line there that I would be tempted to print or paint in, but I decided not to, because where do you stop on something like that? So let's clean off the ghoulies and get back to Frankie. I've got a little bit of time left this afternoon before I got to put all this video together, so let's make the most of it. Okay, it's Friday afternoon, and late Friday afternoon, and I have just enough time to do the last bit of construction. Now I need to take Frankie's head, pop it upon his shoulders, so I need to mix up some more epoxy for that. And then I need to put Buzz on Frankie's shoulder. Mix up a lot of, I need to mix up a lot of resin for this, a lot of epoxy. I'm not even doing this on camera like I should be. So get the mixing up here. Get it nice and thoroughly mixed. Okay, let's turn the camera up here so we can see what's going on. Now I'm just going to put it all over his body. Just going to make it. I'm going to keep it away from the borders because I don't want it to splooge out. As long as it's making contact in the front or in the where the two pieces are touching, that's what I'm interested in. It doesn't have to come all the way out to the border. If it comes all the way out, it has a chance it might splooge. Okay. Now I'm going to have to do some holding on this because there we go. See now? Oh, it's starting to come out around the front there. I got too generous with it, even though I was holding it back. It's okay. I could put a flat spray over that and that'll take care of it. But I'd rather not have to do too much work like that. And the last thing to do is to put young Buzz up here on his and I can go ahead and do that. As a matter of fact, I can just run Buzz's little feet through the epoxy that's left down here on the card and push them in place. There will need to be some cleanup of that. Now the whole thing is going to want to tip backwards now because even though I cut a lot of material off of that cape, it's still backwards heavy. So I may have to prop him up against something. And then I will touch the paint on his shoes. There we go. Sink those down into those holes. That's what I was looking to do. Okay. There he is. And we'll give this a few minutes to set up, and then I can finish up for the week. And there he is, one finished Frankenstein Jr. with Buzz Conroy, Boy Genius. And the last thing for me to do is to make some sort of nice little base for him, some sort of stand. But and really what you're seeing there, that's the daylight coming in the window. But that's another little project that I'm glad to have off my plate. So that's going to do it for this week. Hope you don't mind the nature of these little miscellaneous catch-all videos. I normally have 2 or 3 things going on at any given time, so sometimes you hear about me finishing the big projects and the small ones get pushed aside and I never do finish them. Well, sometimes I just have to go around and add that last 10% to the things that I've got mostly done, get them completely done, and that cleans them off the table, cleans the palette, gets me ready for the next big build, which I should be starting next week. This week is Easter weekend. Hope you enjoy it in your own particular way. Next week we start. We got another weird week coming up next week. I'm just mentally going through what I've got coming up as we get ready for the big Fest of Wonder. And when we start into we're mid-April now, we start into May, I got to concentrate on the things I'm going to be taking, and I haven't really figured that out yet. So I think what I'll do is decide what I'm going to take, be cleaning those up and touching them up, and not videoing that, because sometimes I feel like I'm shooting myself in the foot by telling everybody exactly what I'm going to be bringing to Wonderfest, and then when they show up at Wonderfest, it's like no big deal, people have seen it. And it ruins any sort of surprise I might have garnered. So whatever I take to Wonderfest from this point forward, I probably won't be shooting video of. Maybe. keep you guessing, keep you guessing. So until next week, be good to each other. Have a fine holiday. Talk to you then.